funny though. Future Trunks is probably my favorite character in the show. A lot of people like refer to him. They think he's kind of this Mandragora stew, and it's not fair because he's actually one of the most three-dimensional characters in the entire thing.
The thing is with Dragon Ball, with that particular story arc, the Android Cell Saga, I thought of it as like the Dragon Ball take on Terminator.
Oh,
I
yeah.
saw Future Trunks as somewhat of a Kyle Reese character.
It's kind of funny because it's totally like Dragon Ball Z. That part of the saga was coming out in like 1991, 92, and so it was obvious. Toriyama was like, "This Terminator thing is awesome. I got to have a character that comes back from the post-apocalyptic future, product funded by machines." I mean, it's Toriyama, while a writer who definitely has a lot of charm and tries not to repeat things, he'll create stuff, like all the time. And he'll make it his own. He'll do a lot with it, but Toriyama's got this really bad habit of like, oh, that's cool, I want to do that.
But one out of eight doesn't
So, by the way, there's a Mordecai and Rigby back there. I noticed you instantly. That's awesome. Funny thing is, I got this friend Max. He's a little bit shorter than I am. We plan on hitting up this FurCon like sometime next year. We're totally gonna go with Mordecai and Rigby, like the same thing that you're doing. So, if anybody has any questions, like usually I feel bad. We have like an episode with us, but episode 34 just got done and just went up. So I'm kind of strapped on material. But I do like the fact that this is small and personal, and I can like answer any questions that you guys may have as long as it's not 18 plus.
What's the deal with the muffin button?
I don't get it. It's a button that makes muffins. It's pretty self-explanatory, I think. Actually, funny enough, that we do have a deal with the muffin button. And it was something that a fan helped us come up with. Seeing as Goku's ship was actually reverse engineered from his old ship, we thought, what if every Frieza ship, since Frieza gave all the same ships, he gives everyone their ships, what if he's the one, he made sure that there was a button in there that would actually produce food. And we came up with muffins because they're high in carbohydrates, you have some nuts and fruit in there. I mean, it's essentially perfect food. So the idea was that at some point when Dr. Breeze was reverse engineering the Saiyan 5, well, guess what? There was, in the design, somehow he integrated the muffin button without even knowing. And the reason that Goku thought of the muffin button was because as a kid, he was programmed with all that knowledge. See, you can always, it's always fun to go back and say, here's the reason, even for a totally stupid, concept like the muffin button. And again, that was a fan that helped us come up with that. I can't remember his name for the life of me. Really nice guy, though. So, hey.
Do you have?
Hold on, that's our first. I'll get to you next. Okay. Someone remembers my Lupin. Lupin was one of those first, at least one of the first anime that I ended up seeing on Adult Swim. And I really, really love the character of Lupin. Because he's flawed, but he's also charismatic. He's terrific. No, he's very charismatic. He's devilish. He's a complete pervert, but at the same time, he's also a gentleman. He's a gentleman thief, and you really got to admire something like that. And there's been different takes on him. I don't actually like the Miyazaki take that much because I felt he was very I felt like at the very most that was an older version of Lupin. Like he had settled down. But I still love the character Ivan Lupin, how he's kind of always on top, even though he fails every time. So, I think that came from the fact that I wanted to do something that would help improve my writing. And when you have something like Lupin, you have to get creative, you have to get very sophisticated with humor, even though it's not sophisticated at all, but that and I always thought I had a good approximation to Tony Oliver's. Tony Oliver, by the way, being the best Lupin. I like Sonny's great, Sonny's awesome, but it's all about Tony Oliver and the Pioneer, not me.
I know you, I Tony Oliver, I know you don't like music. I actually do like some Station Trail.
Oh, David Hayter?
Yeah, that was one
No.
of those.
Yeah, no, David Hayter's Lupin is good. Like, and it's not that I dislike music portrayal, I just don't think it's very good.
Same thing with
Oh yeah, Fujiko.
Yeah,
That was not Fujiko.
She turned into Rambo, which is
Yeah.
cool, but
Well, that again, that's
It's not
that's Miyazaki avoiding sexualization of female characters, which is good and bad because I'm somebody who firmly believes sexuality can be part of the character without turning them into an object. Unfortunately, it's very hard to do in fucking realistic.
Do you have any involvement with Hellsing Ultimate?
Oh yeah, I'm the writer. I'm a co-writer. I edit the thing, and sometimes I'll help Taka do direction on it. Although Taka's been taking more of the lead in direction, and Taka writes all about it. Like everything that comes out of Alucard's mouth, that's Taka just going crazy.
Is it true that you only do one episode every Halloween?
The thing is, we're actually going to try and get something done by Acon, or not by Acon, by Kineticon, I think, which is the July. We don't like the 1 year thing, but we don't want to slow down Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
And when I have 2 projects in a month, like we have usually an episode of Dragon Ball Z, that's about between 9 and 11 minutes, and so I also have Hellsing, and that's like 14 to 15 minutes. So I've got to pack 2 of those into 1 month, and it takes me 80 hours, like 80 actual hours to do a Z episode. So if I try and write and edit and drag 2 in 1 month, I mean it's kind of hard. But we love Hellsing though. We do love Hellsing, and we hate making people wait that long for an episode. I mean but.
What's your favorite Trunks, and like in any arc, and why?
Oh, definitely Future. It's not that I don't like Kid Trunks. Kid Trunks is funny, but Future Trunks again, he's one of those characters who he has development, but he's fractured. He's broken. He's not like any of the other characters. He's from like the worst timeline. You know how there's always the alternate timelines where that one was screwed. And the worst part about it is he goes back to the past hoping to change it, but then he finds out like, oh no, I'm just fixing this timeline. Like my future is still screwed.
Yeah.
Until somebody figures out just to give it a making Dragon Balls, I mean, good God. So, but yeah, it's definitely Future Trunks. It was actually a fluke that I ended up voicing him because we started going down the list of actors who could play him. It was like, well, he's playing a character already too similar to that, he's playing a character too similar to that. Kaiser, what's your Trunks? I don't know, it's kind of up here, I suppose. And so we're like, okay, your Trunks. I'm like, woo! But funny enough, we're kind of planning that if we do boo.
I'm actually going to end up playing Kid Trunks. Which is kind of sounds stupid. I'm like I sick on some helium, but well.
So anyone else got another question? All right.
Besides using and any other type of animated guys like you write?
No joke, we wanted to do a One Piece, like one shot, and then freaking Purple Eyes came in and did One Piece, and we're like, well, that's, I mean, now if we do it, we're just gonna have to compare to that. And even if you're not a fan of Purple Eyes style, it's like it's just so much energy and so many jokes, and it's hard to even keep up with. Not to mention, One Piece is a really hard show to make fun of because it sort of isn't, like, it can get serious, but 90% of the time it's not. That's One Piece's style. Yeah, and modeling all of his characters off of famous people. Yes. Has anyone seen that, by the way? The list of all the famous stars that Oda has been modeling his characters after? I'm not kidding. There's some communist politician that he based a character off of, and freaking Howard Stern was the model for Brooke. And he just, all of his characters are modeled after, like, you don't see it at first, But then you see this list of all of the actors that he's modeling them after, and then you realize, how did I never see that before? So, anyone else? Go ahead.
Why would Piccolo be a Yoshi?
I don't know, you're gonna have to ask the Yoshi. Funny enough, that joke, that is a joke that people either love or hate. It's weird. Like, I've seen some people who are like, yay, Piccolo's a Yoshi, and then other people are like, sellouts. And it's like, oh, that's funny too, by the way, the whole sellout thing. It's like, who are we selling out to? But, let's see. But,
Okay, eventually it's gonna come to the point where you're gonna have Piccolo fused back together with Kami, right? Like,
oh yeah.
So are you going to add Kami's voice into that mix?
I don't know, maybe we are.
I also noticed that Kami's voice changed after he died. Like, he used that really old voice. Now he sounds dead similar to Piccolo. What happened?
Okay, so what happened was, the actor who played our Kami, Raditz, and Yamcha, he, like, at one point, he ended up going, like, to Japan. And we had no real contact with him. It was very on and off. And, like, a lot of the times when I get back in contact with him, it would be kind of hard to get lines and hard to work with him. And I didn't claim him at all, but we were going into the Frieza saga, and we needed somebody who was going to be there more, who was going to be, who we could talk to more often. And so we decided, okay, we were friends with them, but we had to tell them, hey, look, we're going to have to, replace you unless we know that you're going to be there more often. He couldn't really assure us of that. So we ended up going with Valero playing Yamcha. Lanny went back to playing Raditz, another character, but he rarely ever shows up. And Remix, Weekly Tube Show, he's playing Kami now. And we decided that we wanted to take Kami in for movie.
Because, the old man voice, there's not a lot to it.
It's kind of boring, and some people find it funny, but it's one thing. It's like, that's the joke. That the voice is the joke. So we wanted to go for something a little bit more like, this man has been around the earth. Like, he has seen the worst of humanity. He has seen world wars. He's seen plagues. He saw the last Tickle Me Elmo. And for God's sakes, the man has a 4G phone and he doesn't get 4G. What's even the point? But no, he's grumpy. He's not happy, like, kind of with his job or anywhere around it. The only person who keeps him company is Mr. Popo. And, and it's funny, we've had this, like, working relationship with Mr. Popo and Tommy. Like, Tommy is the only person Mr. Popo respects, and there's no real identification of why, and we're going to cover that later. But, yeah. So I think you can equal that. Martin, Little Green Book, he's really busy a lot of the time. And that's because he moved to Los Angeles. He's been getting professional work finally, which is like, thank God that man is one of the most talented bastards I know. And he really deserves the work. Like, a lot of people don't know Martin from Martin. Martin is the sweetest, nicest, most polite guy. He cries at the drop of a hat if he feels like he hurt one of his friends. That's the kind of guy that Martin is. And so, like, I really am glad that he's getting the work that I really do think he deserves, because he's completely talented. He's always finding new voices. And that in part has to do with the fact that he's the only voice in the show. Like, every once in a while, he'll have, like, another person come on to do a cameo. But otherwise, all the major characters he voices. And Yu-Gi-Oh! That's actually a lot of them. So, but we thought about doing the collaboration. He's so busy now. I mean, he can barely get out an episode of his own show if his account's not going down, So, but I am glad that we have him in our show, because there's no one else who can play Frieza like him. Like, there's legitimately no one who could have done Frieza with the kind of devilish charm that has. So.
How did you come up with the ideas for giving the characters at the meetings, and more specifically, Mr. Popo being the scary drill sergeant and Lord Guru being a lazy, genocidal maniac?
So every once in a while, we sit back and go, what is this character? What drives this character? What, like, if we boiled him down to a single point, what would we get out of him? And if we boil him down to that point and we don't see something that is legitimately funny if you Flanderize it, Flanderization being taking a character and pushing to its extreme like they did with Flanders and Simpsons, then we're just going to change him. Or we're going to come up with something new. And it's not that we thought that, you know, Guru wasn't a fascinating character. It's just that, you know, his entire point is he's the grand elder, and he looks over Namek, and he's old, and it's like, well, that's interesting, and you know, but we can't really play him off, right? Otherwise, it just comes off as kind of a boring character, so we just changed him up, like, completely. And it was funny, because we came up with the albino Namekian thing on the way. And then we were like, wait a second, we can do more with this. I know we can do more with the albino Namekian thing. And so slowly over time, we created the idea that there was once a full race of albino Namekians. And that, and I was like, okay, so how did they die? Why did they die? And then we came up with the entire idea that Guru framed them. He, like, that's basically what happened. Like, we slowly developed it over the season. We dropped hints. And then you had no idea how giddy I was when we got to the episode. And like, finally, this idea. We come up with ideas like months in advance sometimes. And then when we finally get to implement them, kind of like with the whole muffin ship. Like, we've had that plan for over like a year now. The idea that the muffins can jilt around him. So, yeah, it's with Popo, the weird thing about him was we're thinking, okay, we don't need to do anything with Mr. Popo. Like, we legitimately we weren't going to. He was just kind of a carrot, like he was just this racist stereotype that hung out on Comics Lookout. So we were like, well, what do you even do with him? And then we were like, Atlanta, you play him. He's got this like, oh, this voice that he uses for, you know, little street shop performers. He can do like plans from that. So he just and he decided that he was just gonna use that voice. So it's like, hello, I'm Popo. Hi. And sooner or later we're like, that's really creepy. And then we're like, wait, why don't we just make Popo really creepy? And then we remember there's a scene in the Boo Saga where Trunks and Goten assault him because they think that he's evil. And they go Super Saiyan. And they're punching at him. And Mr. Popo's just like, what's this bullshit all about? It's like he's blocking Super Saiyan punches. And it's like, how strong is Mr. Popo? Had he gone down, he would have smacked the crap out of Raditz. What's this even about? So we're like, okay, apparently Mr. Popo is strong enough to block Super Saiyan punches. Let's push that to its extreme. Let's just make him God, essentially. And so Mr. Popo is one of those characters that we're cutting back on because we don't want to overuse him. But every time he shows up, it's like, hey, Mr. Popo. So, and then, and Nappa. Like,
oh, God.
It's impossible to ignore the fact that what we did with Nappa. And really, that just came from the fact that Taka's voice as him sounded like hilarious. So we're like, you know what? He's an idiot. So we'll just run with that. And then slowly he became this kind of idiot savant, which was never really the intention. But the way that we wrote him, it's like, well, he's got a major in child psychology with a minor in pain. But yeah, it's always fun that when we get to do that with a character. Otherwise, we have characters where we're just taking their most their base personality and then pushing to its extreme, like Goku. We made him more of an idiot. Vegeta, he's just he's turned up to 11 with his personality. So, but all right, let's see.
Why didn't you bleep Vegeta's F
That was
word?
intentional.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of people thought that was a mistake. And the funny thing was, and I don't think I can actually say, it's funny, I can't actually say the word on the panel because I'll say it, maybe I'll say it once, but here's the thing. We always bleep the F word because Dragon Ball is not an adult show. And even though we make adult jokes and we, put ourselves out there, there's a barrier that we kind of feel uncomfortable breaking, because once you completely uncensor that word, you want to use it more sparingly, because then you have this character saying the F word all the time. And while that works in a show like Hellsing, where there's blood and so much violence, and so and you just don't feel comfortable doing that in a show that was originally aimed at 10-year-olds. I mean, even if the violence is there, the show is for kids in Japan. Not so much here, because we have this huge hang-up on like sexuality and violence, when really it's fantasy. And once we embrace the fact that this isn't real, but this is, just pretend, and we educate our kids, it's not going to be such a huge deal. But we just try and hide it and make this big deal out of it, and then don't talk to our kids about it. That's when we have a problem. But anyway, getting a point. We decided not to bleep that one, because when we wrote the line, it was so funny, because when I heard it and then I bleeped it, I was like, this isn't funny. It's just not as funny with the bleep. And so it just came down to, okay, we'll use this one. This is our one buck. Get one. It's two characters driving a car, and they're like, hey, so, did you know that in a PG-13 rated movie, you can say shit as much as you want, but you only get to say once. Otherwise, it's getting R-rated. Really? Yeah. That's stupid. And then for the rest of the movie, they don't say the F word again, and they got PG-13 rated. It's one of my favorite scenes, like meta scenes in a movie, just because it was so well timed and delivered, and you realize, because then you look at the DVD case and you're like, this is PG-13, you bastard. Which is funny, that movie's violent as hell too. Like, if you ever see Be Cool, like, people are getting shot up all the time. I'm like, they try pretty hard to keep that PG-13 rated. So, okay, next question. Oh, don't make me have to. Oh, okay, here we go.
Speaking of voice acting and also vita, those two have actually done a little sketch called Two Saints. Have anyone else from the Nelson Bridge cast thought of actually guest starring here?
We actually have that door closed a little bit, mostly because we're getting a lot of noise pollution. And you're asking, and by the way, for anyone who didn't hear, have any of the other cast members of DVD or Hellsing thought to make an appearance? The problem with that necessarily is that there aren't a lot of games that are like for 3 players. Like, it's either 2 or 4. Or it's 2, 4, or more, like Team Fortress 2 or any of those. The problem necessarily is that, if we were to involve more people, we would also have to involve like the correct characters. I mean, there's no reason for, say, like any of the Genie Force to play with Nappa or Vita, and it's all about finding the right balance. We have thought about doing a 2.5 save play with Trunks, Nappa, and Vegeta. But again, we have to find a game that would fit perfectly with that. We did just do one though where
Slender.
Vegeta Force's villain plays Slender. And that one's actually pretty funny. And funny enough, Nine was talking, he's like, I never found this game scary, but when I'm playing Krillin as it, I feel my heartbeat like raise a little bit. I'm like, well, that's acting. You have to get yourself in the mindset. You have to like feel like you're actually scared to act scared sometimes. So,
I actually have a question. This always confused me.
Okay.
If Bulma was with Goku when he was a kid, how freaking old is she?
Here's the funny thing. The funny thing is, Goku was 12, and she was like 15. What? And because Toriyama was so inconsistent with this, that little, like, dwarf of a boy, apparently, was like 12.
Well, he's not human.
Well, he is a human, that's true. But then Krillin, oh, well, no, that's a bad example. But it is sort of funny because he was really short, and the dub got that wrong at one point too, because they hadn't dubbed Dragon Ball yet. This was like in the Namek saga. Bulma lays back and she literally says, "I've been friends with him since he was 5 years old." Really? He was about like 12 at the time. Which makes that scene with him naked hilarious. Because you're thinking, oh, it's this toddler, it's because toddler nudity, if you have brothers and sisters, you see that all the time. But then you realize, no, this is a 12-year-old boy just standing naked in front of this girl. It's like, well, that's a little more uncomfortable. But then again, Japan with nudity, it's not a big deal for them out there. Which I don't think it should be, as long as it's not sexualized. I mean, you have, nudity for the sake of comedy, that's funny. So, but, yeah, she's not that much older than him, actually. So she's like, I think she's like only 3 or 4 years older. So, at this point though, she's about 27, 28.
Yeah.
So, about time she had a kid. But, and some people find it funny, and yes, the scene at the end of that episode, that is the conception of Trunks.
Yes.
We have another joke set up for the next episode that we've also been waiting to do forever, and let's just say Vegeta's a terrible dad. But he still ends up being almost a better dad than Goku because he sticks around.
Yeah.
And even though he has to hit his kid, he still takes him to the park.
Yeah.
So, all right, anyone? Go ahead.
I just want. I always like it when I see people in the industry, especially in
I know I am up the industry.
related to Dragon Ball. I just like it when the actors talk about how much Fox missed the mark on Dragon Ball.
Oh God.
No, it wasn't good. I just love Fox.
I don't even think they missed the mark. I think they took the mark, covered it in sand, and then just buried it. Like it's Fox with Evolution. The funny thing is they had Stephen Chow on that goddamn film. Stephen Chow, he made Kung Fu Possible. You look at that man, you're like, you're perfect for Dragon Ball. Please make a Dragon Ball movie. And then he barely had any involvement. Instead, they got the guy who did The One, which, while a fun movie in its own right, it's funny. You see The One, and you're like, well, this guy could do Dragon Ball, right? Because it's the high action and all that. Then you saw Evolution, and you're like, this is castrated. There was almost no fighting in the film, and the fighting that was there was lame. And you know why? They had Justin Chapman playing Goku. I mean, you're gonna have a movie all about martial artists fighting, and you're gonna get the son from War of the Worlds. I mean, it's like, really? You could have gotten so many Asian actors who, and let's be honest, you're an Asian actor in Hollywood, you probably do know some martial arts, because how the hell else are you gonna get into a movie in that freaking business? Which is awful, by the way. Like, speaking of Asian actors in Hollywood movies, hey, so anyone likes The Last Airbender? And I had people try and argue with me that, oh, Aang could have been white. Are you serious? He was a monk. He was a monk in an air temple full of obvious Asian characters, and just because he didn't have squinty eyes, I mean, for goodness sakes, their culture is Asian, their language is Asian, their religions are Asian. He's Asian. And so they're like, oh, but no, we're going to have this little Noah kid, who I don't have anything against the kid. I don't have anything against any of those actors, because that's inappropriate. You never hold it against the actors. Plus, the actor came out and said something really stupid, like, oh, I don't know, I could play an Inuit character if I got a tan. That was Stalker's actor, by the way.
Oh.
He's like, oh, I'll just get a tan, and I can play this Inuit character.
I know how you feel. I'm a huge Street Fighter fan. I saw the legend Chun-Li.
Oh, God.
With that Canadian actress, and I'm like, wow, you just made the Van Damme movie on par with the anime movie. You just made it on the same level.
Yeah.
It was so bad. And we live in a day and age where I'm not a huge Castlevania fan, but if I were to adapt a movie, I have the resources called the internet and some of the games digitally released there. I could easily make a very faithful adaptation.
Well, if you have the money and experience of a director, yeah.
Yeah, it's just that with the you would think film video game movie adaptations and stuff like that would get better over time, but no, it seems to get worse.
They're getting a little bit better, but the major problem is, every once in a while, the industry, like the movie industry, will say, "Hey, this game's coming out, so why don't we just pump out something to go along with it?" I mean, the worst part about it all is there are so many legitimate Asian, Inuit, Native American actors who don't get any and apparently the Native American community is okay with Johnny Depp playing Tonto in the new Lone Ranger movie. And if they're okay with it, that's cool. Apparently, like, his grandma was Cherokee. But I was like, you only got Johnny Depp because you wanted Johnny Depp. There were probably other actual Native American actors who would have loved to have played that role and given their input on it. But, I don't know. I'm getting, like, I like to rant on this subject because not a lot of people think about it. The fact that Hollywood is basically nothing but, like, yeah, it's just typecasting. It's all Caucasian men and women, and if there are any African American actors or actresses, they're often pigeonholed. So I really like it's a big thing for me. Like, I like the idea of diversifying the industry. So thank you for asking me about that. You gave me an excuse to rant on the subject. You're welcome. So let's see here. We get one from over here.
Have you ever thought about bringing back the T-Force Let's Play?
We thought about it, we can't find a game that we really want to do. We actually tried to do Borderlands 2. The problem with that is, you really want to pay attention to that script. Like, with Halo, we didn't give any shits. Because it's Halo. I mean, sure, the story is good, but it's Halo. And so we're just playing it, having fun, like, shooting the shit the entire time. But with Borderlands 2, we realized, you know what, we're not having any fun, because the entire, like, half the fun of that game is the script. Like, because, they really upped it in the original Borderlands. Like, they gave it their all. They also had, I can't remember his name. The guy from Hey Ash, and the actual girl from Hey Ash, actually. They helped write that game. And you can really tell that they have a lot of fun with it. So, but we just can't find a game to do CFS plays with anymore. So, like Lanny and Haka, they thought, well, since there are plenty of two-player games that we can do it, let's just like do that. So they've been off doing the Succedes play, and maybe someday we'll finally come back to the CFS plays if we find a game that's good for it. We were actually going to do it with like the Halo 1 and 2 re-release, and then we found out that was only two-player again. It was like, oh, come on, how do you re-release something that can like have four-player? And by the way, if you could make sure the door's closed, you could not let it.
Yeah, I'm about to go back out. I was just making sure everything's good. It's very warm in here. I'm trying to think about it.
But so let's see. Oh yes, you did. It's good. I would totally do with my movie. I probably wouldn't continue the series in Here Flying. I do fancy myself a writer, but at the same time, those characters, while I enjoy them, I'm not really sure I have a lot for them. And I kind of felt like I did the Stand episode because that was the one I really wanted to do when I set out. And then after I was done with it, I'm like, I think I'm tapped. Like, there's one episode of Lupin I released that is awful. It's called Fujiko's Bad Movie. I didn't even label it an actual episode because it was that bad. And, like, the problem is, I don't want to put out anything I'm not getting my eye on music. Now, if I had a movie, I'd have this bigger premise, something bigger and grander, and I'd be able to make bigger jokes. But, you know, TMS hates me. I don't know why. It's like, it's Lupin, you guys. It's like, I'm just a commercial for this. So, anybody else? Go ahead.
What's your least favorite character?
And
DBZ abridged.
And Bridge. My least favorite character in Bridge is, unfortunately, it's probably actually Bulma. And it's not that I think that I like Bulma as a character, but it's not Dragon Ball. If it were Dragon Ball, we could have done a lot more with her, but it's Z. And unfortunately, Toriyama has this bad habit of kind of turning a lot of Latino characters into these really kind of funny, bitchy, like they're not real characters. They're just sort of there to be like foils to the men. It's like, oh, well, you're so lazy and all you do is fight and I'm uncomfortable and can go on the entirety of the like why was she on Namek? She did nothing but complain. The funny part is though, after she gets back, and this is something we're gonna try and work on, she actually has a purpose again. She actually gets involved with the androids and the cure and making sure that Goku's okay and it's really interesting. And I'm really fascinated to do more with Bulma in the saga because like we obviously don't have anything to do with Chi-Chi, even though I love that we do get to make her kind of this really scary and intimidating character. And we have a fantastic joke with her lined up next episode. Like it's the first of the episode, and we're really looking forward to it. But with Bulma, she's a character that we haven't had a whole lot of chance to play with because she's hardly ever there. When she is, she's complaining. But now we get to change that and make her much more of down to earth. So that we're looking forward to that. But as it stands, she's kind of one of these favorite characters only by default. I mean, of course, then we could always go to episode 12 and I could say the like characters we based on the Plutonians. If everyone remembers that. But, let's see. Go ahead.
Has there ever been any like popular workout?
Ones that we didn't use, or ones that we did use and then failed? Alright. So jokes that we felt, I'm not gonna lie, and some people really like him. I think Ghost Snapper was a bad idea. I think
Yeah.
Ghost Snapper, like we really liked that character, not because he was just easy to write for, but he was a lot of fun. I mean, when you have a character like that, it's hard to let him go.
Yeah.
But I think we realized about like after our second time of using him as a ghost, he's superfluous. He doesn't belong in this saga, and what his original point was supposed to be a psychological commentary on Vegeta's like ever-breaking psyche, but ultimately we didn't do that. And so I think if I had the choice, we may never have done Ghost Nappa, which I know for a lot of people that's like, oh, we love Ghost Nappa, and it's a funny idea, but we just never were able to do with it what we wanted to do without stepping over everybody else's lines. Because Frieza Saga was packed. There was so much else going on. We didn't need to shove in a character who wasn't actually there. So I'd say that was one. By the way, there's a joke in the last episode that we were going to do but didn't want to do because we realized it would, one, it was too dark, and two, it would have been misleading. There was supposed to be a scene after, like, the original eye catch for that episode was going to show Yamcha hanging. And then you were going to hear Guar. Yamcha, can I step in the rope now? Yeah, again, way too dark. And we thought that if we put it after the episode, it would have like made it seem like Yamcha still hung himself. Which we're trying to like. We had the little line to go through. You're my friend, and that was basically supposed to be the reason that Yamcha doesn't just. Yeah. Again, by the way, Yamcha has been so much fun. Like Yamcha, it's weird because for the longest time we had Krillin being this total butt monkey. But then Yamcha showed up and we're like, you don't do anything, do you? Krillin trains his hardest. And even though he knows he'll never be the best, he's still trying. Yamcha, what do you do? Nothing, that's what.
Something, a lot of people make fun of Krillin and for being used as a character. When you think about it, Yamcha's far worse. Like, he didn't do much in Dragon Ball. In Dragon Ball Z, he was the first to die, and Krillin killed Frieza.
Oh, to be fair, Goku was the first to die in Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, thing that I think that really sets the deal is that Yamcha lost a girl. Krillin's gonna get her.
Yep. Yamcha is single until the end of the series. And Ten Shinhan, he could have tapped lunch anytime he wanted. That's the hilarious part. That man, I don't know what is wrong with him, but he's just like, he's got this like incredibly beautiful girl who's a little bit bipolar, but you know, hanging off his shoulder, and he's all like, okay, whatever. Hey, Johnson, let's go. And so it's like, it's funny, Yamcha, yeah, he's just, nothing ever comes of him. And it's sort of sad because I think that was just Toriyama repeating a character again. Or at least trying to add this like legitimately human element of, there are titans that they're fighting. And Yamcha's just over here like, yeah, I'm good. And that's fine. But at the same time, like, we need, like, it's almost a necessity to have a character who's kind of the most competitive of the bunch. And the fact that if he didn't stick around, if he just been like, you know what, I'm okay. I'm gonna go get a real job now. I'm gonna go do something else. No, he never gets a real job. He never does anything. He keeps hanging around with them. Like, he's a groupie almost. No, Yajirobe did more than Yamcha ever did. That's why he's the bean daddy. So, but yeah, Yamcha, but yeah, he's been a lot of fun. What was the original question now? I forget.
All these jokes.
Yeah. I liked around. Because the show is really fun. So it's really fun to talk to you guys about.